Welcome to the Chapters and Chai Book Club.
I'm Amanda.
And I'm Francesca, and we're two sisters who love reading, but our reading styles and preferences are quite different.
Yeah, so grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's turn some pages together.
Yay.
And today, we got Starbucks again because it's just the easiest sometimes.
Yeah, just ordering it.
Yeah, when we're feeling like a special drink.
Right.
What did you get?
So I'm having chocolate pistachio matcha, right? Did I get it right? Yes, I've never tried this before. Amanda tried it, and apparently it tastes a little bit like a chocolate milkshake, so I'm excited.
Yeah, let's see your thoughts. It was kind of a weird mix, but let's see.
Okay.
And I got their cool lime refresher, which is just nice, refreshing, cold.
Cheers. That is weird.
Yeah, it took a moment to get used to, I feel.
No, it's good. It just doesn't taste like matcha. So this is our March TBR video. We're gonna go over the books that we read in February, and then we're also gonna say what we're planning on reading in March?
In March, yeah.
In March,
yeah.
So yeah, there will be no spoilers in this video. We're just gonna give our general kind of quick thoughts on the books and our ratings also for the books that we read in February.
Yeah.
So do you want to go ahead?
So starting off with Practicing the Way by John Mark Comer. So this is a Christian literature, so nonfiction book. And it essentially is about how to be an apprentice to Jesus. So it talks about 3 main goals that we should have if we want to apprentice under Jesus, which is to be with Jesus, become like him, and do as he did. And he goes more into detail about how we can adopt these practices in our day-to-day life. And we read this for our deep dive videos with Francesca, which we've posted. So if anybody's interested in our thoughts on this book, you can watch those. But it was a nice book. It was interesting. I found it very academic in his approach of explaining and kind of talking through his arguments. And it was just a good book, like an overall good recap of what it means to be a follower of Jesus. So it was enjoyable. And since it was a non-fiction book, I didn't give it any rating. Then I read A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber, which is the third in the series, in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, which is a romantasy. And since it's the third in the series, I can't go too much into detail about what it was about, but it was essentially just a direct follow-up to the previous book and the conclusion of the whole story. And I really enjoyed this. I overall enjoyed the series a lot.
What did you think about the ending?
The ending, without explaining what it was...
Were you satisfied?
I was... not, maybe.
Yeah.
Look, I felt that there was a lot of build-up in the first 2 books, which in this book I was hoping there was going to be more of a satisfying end to that build-up.
More of an explosion.
Yeah, more of something. The ending was a bit... It fell a bit flat, let's say. It was still satisfying. Like, it was still...
It was cute.
It was cute, but the first 2 books had a very clear storyline. And this one felt a bit like there was no storyline almost. It was a bit fluffy.
It was, like, the way I felt about it is that maybe the author had a very clear idea of what they wanted to do with the first 2 books. And then they were like, okay, scrambling. What's going to happen in the third? How am I going to conclude this?
Yeah.
The idea was there, but then the ending was not thought through.
Yeah, that's what I got to. It was still an enjoyable read, so I think I ended up giving this a 4 stars just because it was so enjoyable still. I read it really quickly. So then for the third book, it was the first book in our book club, which is Funny Story by Emily Henry. And this essentially follows Daphne and Miles, who both have just been broken up with by their respective partners, and those partners get together, and that leads Daphne and Miles to room together, and it just kind of follows them from there. And it has the fake dating trope, and it was nice. I enjoyed it. However, out of all the Emily Henry books that I've read, this was my least favorite so far, which is really sad. I just didn't find their romance 100% believable with the time frame of everything, and I also did not enjoy that this had more spice than the other books have usually had, just because spice is not my cup of tea. But it was still a really excellently written book. The banter was great, and overall the story and everything, how it's written, is really, really good. But I ended up giving it a 3-star because of that. So the next book I read is The Chamber by Will Dean. And this is a psychological locked room mystery. It follows a group of 6 divers that are on a mission. They live in a hyperbaric chamber, which essentially what it is, it's a chamber that's on the mothership, but because they do work very down deep in the sea and the whole pressure of going up and down is too much, they live in this chamber that's already pressurized. And sorry if any of this terminology is incorrect, but how I understood is that it's already pressurized so that they can easily go down and come back up without getting the illness that can happen if you go up too fast. And what that means is that as long as they're in that chamber, they cannot go out of that chamber, because if they did, they would pretty much probably die. So they're on a ship, but they're isolated, and they're being taken care of by the people, the employees of the ship. They get the food taken to them, etc. And all of a sudden, things start going wrong. They find that one of them dies. And it's a whodunit sort of mystery. It's just figuring out how did somebody die. It's a very small chamber that they live in. Now, my thoughts on this book is that this book was a very interesting setting, very interesting concept, and I loved learning about their job. And I actually went down a huge rabbit hole about learning more about this profession. I watched documentaries.
Wow.
I was really, really interested because it's such a fascinating job that people actually do. But for me, the book was so full of anxiety. I was reading it, and the only thing that was keeping me going was because I was so interested in the professional part of it. But everything else, it was just so much anxiety. And in the end, the conclusion of it was not satisfying. Yeah, that's the word.
No.
So I felt like I read all of this to just be super anxious throughout it, to then not even be satisfied at the end. I was really, really disappointed, sadly. And I just remember, like, it wasn't a pleasant reading experience because of the anxiety of it, which maybe that's credit to the author because it's supposed to be an anxious read, but it was just too much. I did not enjoy it. So I gave it a 2 stars from a personal perspective of my enjoyment of this book, but that is not to say that the book was badly written or anything. It was well written, I think. It just wasn't for me. Then the next book I read was Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. We read that also for the book club. And that one follows our main girly Liz, who her childhood crush moves back into town, and she likes to romanticize everything. She loves romantic movies, and she has decided that this is her big romantic plot line, is to get together with her childhood crush Michael, and she enlists the help of her, let's say, enemy neighbor Wes, who they get into an agreement where if Wes helps her get Michael, she will give her parking spot to Wes. So that's the premise. And this book was so lovely to read. It was such a just rom-com type of book, very feel-good type of a book. I really, really liked the writing of it. I loved the story. It was just one of those books you want to continue reading. And even though you kind of can predict what's going to happen, it was just a happy, girly book. So I loved that. And we go more into detail about our thoughts again in the book club video, but I ended up giving it a 4 stars. I really loved it. It did not give me that 5-star feeling that I need to get in a book for the book to get 5 stars, but it was one of my favorite books so far this year, so I really enjoyed it. And the final book that I read is The Baby Dragon Cafe by A.T. Qureshi. I hope that's how it's pronounced. And this is a cozy fantasy. It follows Saphira, who's the main protagonist, and she has opened up a cute cozy cafe that welcomes baby dragons. So in this world, people have baby dragons as their pets, and a lot of places don't want to have the baby dragons come in there. So it's kind of like a dog or a cat cafe, but in this world it's a dragon cafe, which is really cute. Then one day, this mysterious handsome man called Aiden comes to the cafe, and Aiden has a baby dragon that is very poorly behaved. This dragon is feisty, and this dragon does not want to behave, and it's the cutest thing ever. Saphira decides to help train this dragon. So it's a romantasy, but like a cozy romantasy. I ended up soft DNFing this because I just wasn't in the mood for a slower read at the moment, but I do think I'll probably pick it up again at some point when I'm feeling more like reading something a bit slower. It's one of those types of books that's more like slice of life, really slow. There are no high stakes by any means. It's just more about like describing the foods, describing the cute dragons. I got about, I think, 150 pages into it, so I'm about halfway through. So I'll definitely finish it at some point, but it just wasn't grabbing my attention enough during this season in my life.
Okay, so moving on to the books that I read in the month of February. So I'm gonna start with Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn by Sarah J. Maas. It's the 6th and the 7th book in the Throne of Glass series. And I did the tandem read, which I'm very happy I did, because these take place at the same time, and basically these are the POVs of different characters in the series. And the way these were written is that you read this book first, and then you go all the way back in time, and then you read this, and this kind of has, you hear things that are happening in this book as well. But because this book, the ending of this book is just, it had me screaming. It just gave me so much anxiety, and I was like, okay, I need to know what's gonna happen next. So if I had to then go back in time and read this book, I think I would have hated this book in that case, because I'd be like, no, I don't care, I want to know what's gonna happen. But I love both of them so very much. Empire of Storms was way more faster. It was about the war, things were happening, some characters were becoming stronger and they were gaining more control, and you were just learning more about them, and I absolutely loved that. And there's one specific character that had quite of a big character arc, and I was obsessed with that. And yeah, as I said, the ending just had me screaming. And then Tower of Dawn, on the other hand, was a bit slower. It was more about also a romance. There were 2 romantic storylines going on in this book, and I really loved that. And it happened in a different country, completely in a different continent, and the way they described that continent was just so nice. Like it made me want to go there, and I just loved it. So reading these 2 at the same time was so nice, because you kind of got the happy romance, warm vibes from here, and then the edge of your seat anxiety, but also very empowering vibes from this book.
Okay.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed both of these, and anyone out there, please do the tandem read. I really recommend it to you. Now, rating wise, I gave Empire of Storms 4.75. It was very close to 5, but it did not surpass the hype of Throne of Glass. And I'm sure that Kingdom of Ash will probably be better, because things got left kind of in the middle in this book, so I couldn't give it a 5 stars. And then Tower of Dawn, I gave it a 4.5. just because it was a bit slower. There weren't many new characters that I really ended up loving, but by the time that, you know, you got into the characters, it took a little bit of time. But this woman knows how to write so well, because in one book, she introduces this whole new world with all these new people, and they already have so many layers to them, and you already feel for them so much, and you cry with them. It's insane. She's such a good writer in that way. Then moving on to Onyx Storm. I have now finished Onyx Storm. I'm about halfway through, and I have some thoughts which might not be very popular. So in general, I've struggled with this series a little bit. The first book was like, I enjoyed it a lot. Fourth Wing was very kind of fast-paced. It was interesting. It had the love story, all of that. I really, really liked it. Then Iron Flame, I struggled. The first 2/3 of the book, I could not get into it. I would force myself to read it. I was kind of bored. I did not care that much about the politics in all of it. And yeah, I don't know. I could not get into the characters. I just didn't care enough to pick up the book and enjoy it. The final third, though, I was so into it, and I was like, okay, thank goodness it really picked up, and I just ate it up really quickly. So then I was very excited for Onyx Storm, because I thought that it's gonna kind of pick up and be like the final third of Iron Flame. However, the first half I'm not into it again, and I'm sure that the final half will be more interesting, but there's something about the writing that really bothers me. Basically, I think that it's very much concentrating on the politics of the book, and there are not many moments where you kind of see the people's lives and you get to laugh with them and you get to kind of relate with them. So I don't get invested into the characters, and all the side characters, I don't tell them apart even that much from each other, and I don't know, I just don't connect to them. They feel like fillers in the book. Also, the love story has stayed very much the same. It's very intense, but in a lustful way. I don't feel their love to each other. I feel like they are in a toxic, lustful relationship where they need each other, but the way they show that to each other is only through sex, but they don't really have those cozy, cute moments where you're like, oh, they really are meant for each other. So I'm also not that invested in the love story, and I think that especially the MMC needs some therapy. So I'm gonna read the rest of the book, and I'm sure, like in the last book as well, I'm probably gonna enjoy the rest of it a bit more, but I'm gonna talk in the next TBR about my thoughts if my opinion changed. Then obviously I read the book club books, which is Funny Story by Emily Henry. I really enjoyed this. I gave it a 4.5. I love a nice cute little romance, and okay, I'm not gonna repeat what Amanda said, but if you want to hear more of my thoughts, you can go to the book club video that we posted. Then Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter, that I also loved. I gave it a 4-star, and that also had me giggle and had me laugh, and I really enjoy high school romance always. Then I read Practicing the Way by John Mark Comer. This was a very insightful book. It had a lot of practical advice that you can implement into your life, so I enjoyed that. I don't think this is maybe my favorite Christian book, but it was very nice, and I think anyone who will read this, it will give you a lot of advice and it will help you out with your life. Then, because I liked Funny Stories so much, I decided to read also Book Lovers by Emily Henry and Happy Place by Emily Henry. And I know that Amanda enjoyed these books a lot.
Yeah.
And Amanda did not enjoy Funny Story as much as I did. So I'm the opposite. I really liked Funny Story, but these two fell a little bit flat for me. So I think The
I'm
thing
confused.
I'm sorry. The thing with me is that when I'm reading a romance, I kind of want the romance to be something new. I want it to be a bit of a slow burn. I want it to be a will they, won't they situation. Whereas, first of all, book lovers, you could just, like, they hooked up in the first. They hooked up very early, so...
I don't remember that.
It happened very quickly, and after that I was like, oh, okay, well, they're gonna end up together.
For me, when I read Emily Henry books, I actually don't read them for the romance. Controversially, I don't care about the romance at all. I love all the other aspects of the book. The reason why Book Lovers has been, I think, my favorite is because I connected to the sister timeline a lot, given that I'm a big sister and she's a big sister. And it made me cry, like some of the sisterly moments.
Okay.
And I also love the setting. So the romance is like a very insignificant part.
So, Book Lovers, I gave it a 3.5.
Yeah, okay. It was a 5-star read for me.
Oh, wow. The sisterly dynamics were cute. Happy Place, I gave it a 3.75.
Okay.
So almost a 4, okay?
Yeah.
Just, I was comparing these to, for instance, Better Than the Movies, which
Yeah.
I gave Better Than the Movies 4 stars, and I really like that. Really made me giddy and cutesy and all that. So should we move on to our TBRs for March?
Yes. All right. So starting off with the book club picks, the first one is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And the synopsis of this is it follows the rise and breakup of a 1970s rock band. And I think it's told in an interview format, so it follows different viewpoints and it pieces together the band's journey through the different perspective of the different band members. And I think it's a literary fiction or historical fiction, one of the two. So really excited for that. I've only read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by this author, but I really like that book and I liked her writing, and I know this one is really highly praised. So super excited to see what I think about this one. Next, the second book for the book club is Never Lie by Frida McFadden. And this one is a psychological thriller, and it follows newlyweds Trisha and Ethan as they get stranded in a secluded mansion during a snowstorm. The house once belonged to a renowned psychiatrist who mysteriously disappeared a couple years ago. And while exploring, Trisha discovers the doctor's secret therapy recordings and starts listening to them. And it basically reveals some chilling details about her patients and also about the fate that Trisha will have. Really interesting.
I'm excited about this one. Yeah,
I'm excited. I like that it's shorter. And again, I've only read The Housemaid by this author, but I remember it was a really quick, easy read. Each chapter kind of left off with a cliffhanger, so I'm hoping this is the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's see. The next book is The Memory Keeper by Jenny Hale. This is a book I've had in my physical TBR for maybe 2 years. So I was like, I need to read this finally. And I thought now that we're in March, it would be nice to read something a bit more spring, summery, get those vibes going. So this one is a romance book, and it follows Hannah, who returns to her late grandmother's beach house, hoping to restore it. And as she reconnects with her past and a charming local contractor, she learns that some memories are worth holding on to. Bit vague, but that's the synopsis. And I'm just hoping, my hopes for this book are that it's going to give those beach town feels, small beach town. I don't know where it takes place exactly, but somewhere by the coast with sandy beaches, cocktails, and that's just like a nice romance. It has a porch on the cover, some hydrangeas. It's giving nice vibes. Next is Death at High Tide by Hannah Dennison, and this is a cozy mystery. And I find this cover so cute. It has a little cat.
Nice.
But basically, this follows Evie, who decides to visit a mysterious hotel on an island off the English coast, once owned by her late husband, but she finds herself entangled in a murder investigation. And this is supposed to have quirky locals, hidden motives. It's supposed to have a little bit of humor. And then lastly, I have Bookshops and Bone Dust. So this is the prequel to Legends and Lattes. And so it's a cozy fantasy for those that don't know. It follows young Viv, who's the main character in Legends and Lattes, who is recovering from an injury, and she's recovering in this sleepy seaside town, and she finds herself drawn to a struggling bookshop, its quirky owner, and the charming community around her. So yeah, I think it's probably going to be very similar style to Legends and Lattes, but in a bookshop setting. Very cozy, again, cute. I hope it's going to have some food descriptions again, as the other one had. And that's it.
Nice. Those seem like very, cozy books.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm have a nice cozy month.
Yes.
Okay, so for me, my TBR is obviously Never Lie by Frida McFadden as well. Then I'm also going to read Daisy Jones and the Six. Then I'm going to read the rest of Onyx Storm, of course. I'm not going to talk about what's going on in this book. Then Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas, which is the last book in the Throne of Glass series, and I'm already about to cry.
Already mourning
the characters. And I'm stressed because I've heard so many people say that this book just left them in pieces. So I need to make sure that I'm not going to work next time. So I'm gonna have to finish this during a weekend. Then I'm gonna read Beach Read by Emily Henry, and hopefully this is gonna be a bit more like funny story vibes. So this says, Jenny is a hopeless romantic who narrates her life like she's the lead in a blockbuster movie. Gus is a serious literary type who thinks true love is a fairy tale. But Jenny and Gus have more in common than you'd think. They're both broke. That's funny. They have crippling writer's block and they need to write bestsellers before the summer ends. The result, a bet to swap genres and see who gets published first. The risk in telling each other's stories, their worlds might be changed entirely. So it sounds like obviously a romance again. And I'm excited. It's a short one. So yes, I'm going to be reading this and I'm excited and I'm hopeful. Then I want to read Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn, which is the second book after Better Than the Movies. So I'm not going to go into detail about what this book is about, but I'm excited to see how their journey continues. And yeah, I hope that this is as cute and cozy as the first book.
Yeah.
Then last but not least, I want to start the Kindred's Curse saga, and the first book is The Spark of the Everflame. And basically this follows feisty heroine DM Bellator in her fight against injustice and oppression, her struggle to survive in a royal palace full of betrayal and intrigue, and her journey of self-discovery. And it's also supposed to have a super, super slow burn romance. And I've heard many, many good things about this book series, so I really want to start it already. I think I have already mentioned in the past that I will read this series, I'll start the series, but I haven't had the chance. This month shall be the month though. So, yeah. I'm excited about that. And that's all for me.
Perfect. Exciting.
Yes. Okay. So if you've read any of these books or if these books are in your TBR, then please let us know. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And we'll be obviously talking about our thoughts on our TBR in next month's TBR video. And yes, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, feel free to subscribe or leave a comment or like the video. And yeah, we'll see you soon.
See you. Bye.